Thanks for joining us for CBN News Today. I'm Ephraim Graham. Our top story at this hour, a new threat from ISIS. The terror organization has released a new video threatening to kill 2 Japanese hostages unless their government pays a $200 million ransom in the next 2 days. In the video, the 2 men appear in orange jumpsuits, like other hostages previously killed by ISIS. Japan says it will not yield to terrorism, but has not said whether it plans to pay the ransom. Meanwhile, Europe is on edge as police forces try to trace terrorist sleeper cells. In Germany, 200 officers have raided 13 homes in connection with the arrest last week of 2 suspected members of an Islamic cell. In the UK, the threat level against police has been raised to a new high. And in France and Belgium, soldiers and police are stepping up patrols on the streets.
It's not the same as in the days of 9/11 when we had an identifiable command and control structure. Something much more difficult now, moving rather insidiously in our communities and across the internet in particular.
Top law enforcement officials say these terrorist cells aren't operating as one network, and that makes them a much more dangerous challenge. Back here in the U.S., President Obama addresses Congress today in his annual State of the Union speech. He's expected to make the case America's economic comeback is real and proposing significant tax increases to fund his many ideas. George Thomas has a preview.
The President of the United States.
The White House says the president's focus tonight in his 6th State of the Union is about helping the middle class.
He's going to talk about how middle-class economics brought us back from the brink and put us to a place where the economy is growing, jobs are growing, the deficit is shrinking.
His proposal, raising $320 billion in new tax hikes on the wealthy that will fund, among other things, middle-class tax cuts, free community college, infrastructure spending, and child care tax credits.
This could be a legacy State of the Union where he realizes that he has 2 more years in the White House and what is the memory that he wants to leave people with.
But key leaders in the Republican-controlled Congress are already pushing back, calling the president's plan to raise taxes on the wealthy a non-starter and bad for business. Republican Senator Orrin Hatch said slapping American small businesses, savers, and investors with more tax hikes only negates the benefits of the tax policies that have been successful in helping to expand the economy, promote savings, and create jobs. Meanwhile, with homegrown terrorists redrawing battle lines around the world and a president who refuses to describe the enemy as radical Islamists, officials are warning threats to our nation are growing. Former Defense Secretary Leon Panetta says it's only a matter of time before terrorists strike us again. A new Pew Research poll shows that fighting terrorism is a top issue among Americans, while 57% of people in a CBS poll believe a terrorist attack will happen on U.S. soil in the next few months. George Thomas, CBN News.
There are new signs religious tensions are escalating in Niger. Islamic protesters burned down more than 40 churches and Christian homes over the weekend. Now come reports men are going around on motorcycles marking Christian homes in the city of Niamey. Christians are fearful of what could come next after the devastating riots just days ago. They're asking for prayers for God's protection. Reports from the region indicate at least 10 people were killed in the riots after being trapped inside burning churches. The violence has been fueled by anger over the French magazine that posted another cartoon of Muhammad. CBN is sending financial assistance to help meet the urgent needs of Christians who are suffering there. Israel is bracing for retaliation from the terror group Hezbollah in Lebanon after an Israeli helicopter strike Sunday in Syria. 6 people were killed, including Hezbollah military leaders and at least 1 Iranian national. At a funeral for one of those killed, thousands of Hezbollah supporters chanted death to Israel. Israel's military has not commented on the strike. Senator John McCain warns the threat of ISIS and militant Islam is growing and more needs to be done to stop it. McCain made the comments while visiting Israel. He and Senator Lindsey Graham said the Obama administration and the world need to form a coherent strategy to combat ISIS.
The president does not have a strategy to carry out his stated goal of degrading and then defeating ISIS. That strategy is nowhere to be seen.
ISIL in general. You see how it is affecting the neighborhood. It is now on your porch. and it will come to America. I hope and pray that the world will do more than just have marches and make speeches when it comes to radical Islam. Hope we'll come up with a strategy to defeat these people in Syria and wherever they reside.
Senators McCain and Graham are heading up a delegation of U.S. senators visiting several Middle East countries. Well, this year's March for Life is just 2 days away. On January 22nd, Americans will mourn the many millions killed since the Supreme Court legalized abortion back in 1973. But as Paul Strand reports, this year many pro-lifers are focusing on how abortion sends out circles of harm way beyond the unborn.
These pro-life leaders gathering at the National Press Club announced a special emphasis throughout the year will be on the many, usually unpublicized ways abortion hurts.
Abortion has certainly created 56 million victims, the children, but the reverberations from it go out way beyond that.
Georgette Forney aborted a child when she was 16 and still grieves after 39 years.
It doesn't happen in this little room and you walk away and it's all gone. It's not like having a tooth pulled and you get up and you go back to work and it's no big deal. It is a trauma, it's life-changing, and not only for the woman herself, but for the people around her.
Like the daughter she eventually had, who as an 18-year-old was horrified when she first heard how her older sister had been killed.
This 8-year-old on my lap knew it wasn't okay, knew it didn't matter if it was legal or illegal, but that it had permanently impacted her life.
That little girl couldn't let go of her unborn sister, who would have been named Elizabeth.
And so she began to have a kind of a pretend relationship with Elizabeth as an 8-year-old that carried on for many years, because she had always wanted a big sister.
Silent No More's Kevin Burke found out recently from a counselor at a maximum security prison how many would-be fathers spin out of control after abortions.
90% of the inmates had experienced abortion. And in an informal poll he did, many of these men shared that it was part of their descent into crime.
Burke says their rage and anger lead to all sorts of trouble.
Destructive relationships, abusive behaviors, impulsive, risk-taking behaviors.
Janet Morana knows from painful personal experience how much would-be grandparents can be devastated.
My daughter had 2 abortions without even telling me. And she knew I was pro-life. She knew she could come to me, but somehow she felt, I don't want to disappoint Mom, and she went off and did that. And so I mourn the loss of my grandchildren.
The leader of Priests for Life says the circles of harm go beyond the family.
You have the friends who may have helped her to get an abortion, or the abortionist himself and their staff, even the pro-life advocates who try to save that life and fail. That hurts.
But longtime abortion foe Marjorie Dannenfelser says pro-choice advocates believe abortion has saved society from what the Nazis called useless eaters. Millions of unproductive young people that would have drained resources.
The thinking behind that, of course, is that kids are underbrush, and that there are certain parts of society that should be cleared out so that the rest of us can actually eat well and live with some distance between you and me.
Think about all the children that were aborted, over 50 million. They would have been working and paying into society. Maybe the government would not be shutting down and Social Security wouldn't be going bankrupt because they would be productive citizens.
I mean, the real question is, can we afford not to have this child? Given what that child is meant to do and be.
Dannenfelser believes each aborted child could have contributed something important to the world.
Because we know each of them was made for a purpose. Many of those purposes, of course, are purposes that were never filled by somebody else.
Paul Strand, CBN News, the National Press Club in Washington.
Bible colleges in Illinois have filed a federal lawsuit against state education regulators. They're fighting for the right to award degrees to students who complete their programs without restrictions by the state. The lawsuit contends the Illinois Board of Higher Education is violating the Bible college's First Amendment rights of free religious exercise and free speech. There are about 15 Bible colleges in Illinois. A Virginia school board has dropped a policy that would have forced some homeschooling families to justify their religious beliefs. The Goochland County Public School Board backtracked after 250 passionate parents showed up at a school board meeting to voice concerns. The rule would have required homeschooled children older than 14 to defend their religious beliefs if their families wanted to file for religious exemption from public schools. The Homeschool Legal Defense Association warned the school district they were violating state law.
The worst part of this policy was that the board reserved the right to call in the kids, the 14 the 15-year-olds to call them in before a hearing before the board and question them about their faith, and that was unacceptable.
The county has now reversed that measure, but the school board still maintains the right to demand a hearing with homeschooling families. Coming up, Pope Francis is adding another U.S. city to his tour of America. We'll tell you where he's heading and bring you some of the highlights from his trip to the Philippines. Plus, we want to let you know about a special CBN Day coming up on Sunday night on ABC Family. It starts at 10:45 Eastern and highlights some of our biggest stories and gives you the opportunity to chat live with our reporters about them. Stay with us. Many people answered a Virginia man's call to gather for prayer on rooftops on Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. And Lionel Harris led one group of them here in the Hampton Roads area of Virginia. The prayers are in response to many of the protests we've seen erupt across the United States and the cries of racism that follow grand jury decisions not to indict police officers in the deaths of unarmed black men.
It's amazing to be out here on the rooftop praying for unity for our nation. I think there's so many people that are one-sided or on another side trying to bring unity amongst their own groups. But I think when we can come together, we can change the world. Like Martin Luther King, he changed the world because he let love be his language. And so if we can do that through prayer, that's why I'm out here.
The hashtag The Rooftop Gatherings are praying for unity and for guidance on what actions to take next. Pope Francis is heading to the United States. Monday, he confirmed he plans to add New York City to his trip in September. The announcement comes on the heels of his historic trip to the Philippines, where record crowds greeted him. He delivered a message of compassion. Some of his remarks, though, were considered controversial. Gary Lane has more from Manila.
One of the first stops on the Pope's historic Philippines tour was a visit to Tacloban, the region devastated just over a year ago by Typhoon Haiyan. But his stay there was cut short when a tropical storm started to move in. The Pope was criticized just moments before his Philippines arrival when he suggested the Charlie Hebdo terror attack occurred because Muslims were insulted by the magazine's critical cartoons. The Pope said freedom of expression is a fundamental right, but people should not abuse it by provoking or insulting the faith of others. And once he arrived in Manila, he strongly defended traditional marriage, saying that powerful forces threaten to disfigure God's plan for creation. He called same-sex marriage a threat to the family and society itself. Also a threat to the family unit, abortion.
Protect your families. Protect your families. Be sanctuaries of respect for life, proclaiming the sacredness of every human life from conception to natural death.
While the Pope's earlier comments were deemed somewhat political and maybe even a bit controversial, in his final day of meetings here in Manila, he told thousands of young people that they need to live their faith, demonstrate it through mercy, compassion, and humility. And if Filipinos are to be good Christians, they need to have an encounter with Christ, learn to weep, and reach out to help those in need. The chairman of the Philippine Council of Evangelical Churches suggests the Pope's message also applies to non-Catholics.
And we evangelicals can benefit from that because it has been a long time that our faith has been private and very personal. And we need to refocus our faith into engagement.
Perhaps one of the most memorable moments came at the Pontiff's final meeting, as a record 6 million people gathered in the rain at Rizal Park. That's where a rescued homeless girl asked the Pope why God allows children to suffer. He told her there are some realities that you can only see through eyes that have been cleansed by tears. He urged people to see children as a gift to be welcomed.
And we need to care for our young people, not allowing them to be robbed of hope and condemned to the life on the streets.
Pope Francis will make history again with his first visit to the United States. It's scheduled for next September in an appropriately named city for this compassionate Pope, Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. Gary Lane, CBN News, Manila, Philippines.
Up next, Dr. Ben Carson diagnoses one of President Obama's biggest problems. CBN's David Brody gets up close and personal with the famous neurosurgeon who could be one of the next presidential hopefuls. Plus, CBN CBN News Special this Sunday on ABC Family starting at 10:45. It will highlight some of our biggest stories, and we'll be watching with you. And you can live chat with us at the same time. The huge Republican victory in this year's midterm elections was just a few months ago, and already politicians and voters are looking ahead to the presidential race in 2016. CBN News recently spent some time with a man who could be a most unusual candidate, Dr. Ben Carson. David Brody has more.
Dr. Ben Carson is known as a straight shooter, whether it's pool or talking politics.
Obamacare is really, I think, the worst thing that has happened in this nation since slavery.
His no-nonsense approach captivates conservative audiences, and now the massively organized Draft Ben Carson for President movement has positioned him near the top of presidential polls. Indeed, it looks like he might be ready to move from medicine to politics. But first, he says God would have to grab him by the collar.
And how is that conversation going with God about this potential presidential run? Has he grabbed you by the collar yet? I read an article about that.
I feel fingers.
A presidential run would only add to Carson's achievements.
My life has been truly amazing. I think about it all the time.
His well-documented journey is told in the book and movie Gifted Hands. It begins in Detroit, where he was raised by a single mom. Poor grades followed, along with a violent temper that led him to a stabbing incident with a friend. On that day, the knife miraculously hit the boy's belt buckle, giving young Ben Carson another chance to turn his life around. And he took it. Alone in his house, he picked up a Bible, gave his life to Jesus, and asked the Lord to take away his violent temper.
Never had another anger problem since that day. And some people say you just learn how to cover it up. But when the Lord fixes a problem, he fixes it. He doesn't do a paint job. So, it's virtually impossible to make me angry now.
And if the doctor becomes a presidential candidate, he says his cool demeanor is going to help him.
I'm not going to take the bait. I'm not going to get angry. It's just not going to happen.
This could be the essence of a Carson for President campaign. A calm doctor dispensing ideas and leading a conversation on pressing issues, seeking reconciliation.
Americans have to recognize that we, the American people, are not each other's enemies. The enemies are those people who try to divide everybody up.
For example, those calling pro-lifers anti-women or traditional marriage supporters anti-gay.
They've been reading a book by Saul Alinsky called Rules for Radicals, which says never have a conversation with your enemies because that humanizes them. And your job is to demonize them.
Candy Carson, his wife of nearly 40 years, knows that her husband will be demonized by his critics if he runs. She understands the stakes.
Our country is going a way that's different from what our founding fathers were thinking, and we wanted to make sure he felt really called to wake people up. And that's what he's been doing.
The Carsons plan to lean on their Christian faith to get them through.
In the Bible it says the Lord doesn't give you more than you can handle, right? And a lot of times you feel like, are you sure? Are you really sure? But he does give you what you need.
We recognize that, we are being instruments in the hand of God. He is the one who really orchestrates all of this.
Right now, Carson is putting together his platform. He wants a fairer and flatter tax structure, lower corporate taxes, and health savings accounts for all. But his number one issue, the out-of-control debt.
Unless we get a grip on that, why wouldn't we suffer the same fates as other pinnacle nations who have allowed debt to encumber their progress?
Carson also will not let political correctness get in his way. He plans to speak his mind on issues like the roots of this country.
We are, in fact, a Judeo-Christian nation. And I think that's a huge part of our strength.
Or comparing our current government to Nazi Germany.
And I know you're not supposed to say Nazi Germany, but I don't care about political correctness.
He talks straight about President Obama, too.
Our president is very much like Putin. Oh, well, gee, there's no resistance here. Okay, well, I'll just keep going. And the resistance needs to be there.
What would you want to tell him?
I would want to tell him, sir, I understand that you have very defined ideals of what you think America is, but you work for the people. They don't work for you.
Constitutional authority, he has overstepped that, you believe, in many instances?
Without question. And hopefully, the legislators in Congress will understand what they need to do.
What do they need to do?
They need to have a spine. They need to stand up, because once you allow someone to take liberties with the system, they're not going to stop.
Carson says it's up to the people to change America's direction.
People need to recognize that they do have power, but they do have to exercise it. It is our God-given duty to exercise that power.
And he's praying for God to show his power in a mighty way.
Do you think this country needs a spiritual awakening?
We most definitely need a spiritual awakening. I mean, look at the direction that we're going in. Mm-hmm. Absolute absurdity.
And the good doctor seems ready to tackle that absurdity in the wild world of presidential politics. David Brody, CBN News.
And there it is.
In West Palm Beach, Florida.
I'll give you a chance for revenge.
Well, this time of year, CBN 700 Club holds a telethon in support of all the work the ministries associated with us here at the Christian Broadcasting Network. CBN News is a significant part of that ministry, and we are thankful to be a trusted news source for you. We're airing a special Sunday night on ABC Family, highlighting some of our most popular or significant stories. And we want you to join us as we do something we've never done before. We're going to be chatting live with you during that newscast. Be sure to join us Sunday night at 10:45 Eastern. We'll bring you more on this all week long. Well, that is going to do it now for CBN News Today. Remember, you can find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care most about at cbnnews.com. And take the time to tell us what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can do it on Facebook or at CBN News on Twitter. Hope you'll join us again right here next time. Make it a terrific Tuesday.